Looks like we have 20, yeah, 22.
Yeah, we still got a few coming, but if you want to get going, uh,
Okay.
I'll start moving it forward.
Yeah, we want to be cognizant of everybody's time, and we have quite a bit actually to try to cover. So, just in the event that are there people that have not been on the call yet? I guess maybe could we get either show of hands or something? Have if you've not been on one of these calls yet? I think we're to number three. Anybody not been on the call yet? Okay. Well, then I don't think we need to cover this slide, but the purpose of this task force is really to try to get somewhere with Reg E. We're going to share some information about a survey that we're attempting to launch very quickly. I know I've talked to a few of you, and we want things to be moving. We want to feel like we're making some progress and we're getting some traction, but in order to do that, we have to get some intel from the survey. And so we're hoping that the survey will go out, provided we edit what we're going to edit today, um, either mid next week or the following week. Matt has to be really cognizant of what else is going out from the league and where this stuff kind of fits with the communication team. So we need to be aware of that also. The structure is basically that we have the league that has four states, and anybody that really wants to be on this task force as a volunteer is able to do so. We've encouraged people that have the invite to forward it out to others. I know there's a few on my team that are on the call. So there are multiples of some credit unions, but the hope is that the people that are on the call are actually impacted in dealing with fraud and Reg E. So that's the purpose. The agenda basically, I sort of just went through it on accident, but we're going to try to finalize the Reg E survey. So the survey was sent out last month or a month and a half ago, and there were some questions on there that we sort of went through, and there have been some proposed new questions, some of them with regard to remote deposit capture. Reg E encompasses a lot, so we want to make sure we're getting the information from all the different angles. But then we're also going to try to have some interaction toward the end of the meeting about navigating card system requirements and whether or not maybe we can get in touch with partners. Maybe they want to be involved in this as well because they are also impacted by Reg E. And then at the very end, some of you can fall off the call if you want, but I'm going to stay on the call. And I asked Matt if we could keep it open for a little bit to try to discuss some scenarios that we have in our credit union. We'll make up some names or such to try to figure out how you at your credit union are dealing with the same scenario. And what I think this is going to solidify is the fact that the interpretation of Reg E is different for each of our institutions, and maybe that narrative can help push some change through too. So that's kind of the goal. Does anybody, before we really get started, does anybody have any questions or additions or comments, concerns? If so, you're muted on purpose. Okay. All right. Let's move forward, Matt. Okay, so we have Matt sent out to all of us, and maybe if you were forwarded the invite, you didn't get it. But the final Reg E survey was sent out. It was sort of edited a little bit, and there were some additional thoughts that we kind of want to run through. And I think we basically want a thumbs up, thumbs down. Is that right, Matt? Nope, you're muted.
Yeah, so we got a bunch of edits back, which is fantastic. Thank you all. So I've updated the survey, and then we got some new proposed questions. So these questions, most task force members. Probably the first time you saw them was a couple days ago. Uh, just to get an idea of if we want to add these in, and these are not like, hey, we have to add these in. These are suggestions from the group. So if we have consensus, we can build them in. The one thing I just wanted to be cognizant of, and also talking with Maggie, is making sure that we don't make the survey a 30-minute survey. We want it to be,
Right.
pretty quick. And so adding additional questions, if we think it's worth it, then absolutely do it. And so we just wanted to talk about that. So we'll go through that today. And then like Maggie said, once this is finalized, we'll get it into a system where people can easily fill it out, either a Google form or something like that, where it's just very simple for someone to fill it out. And so that way they don't have to. I've had a few folks who thought the survey was the final survey, who like highlighted things and sent it back. And I apologize, I didn't make that clear the first time around, but this next one will be super easy to fill out. It'll be multiple choice or however we decide to do it. So that's kind of where we're at.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's take a look at those. So I really need for people to come off of mute for so that we can decide whether or not we're going to keep these. If you've looked at them, hopefully you already know. My only question or my only concern, really, and Matt already touched on it, is that one, are the people that are filling this out, is it quick? Can they get the data? And are you in your fraud environment able to get this information, or are you then going to have to go to this department and go to this department, because we want this done, even if it means that we have to do another survey, a couple months down the road. So the first question, it looks like, I mean, you guys can read, I'll read it to you. How frequently does your credit union encounter disputes or fraud claims related to consumer authorized but fraudulent transactions, i.e. scams? And then we'd list, the A, B, C, D, E. Matt, we're looking for a thumbs up, thumbs down on these, right? We just want to know. Okay. So I can't see everybody, but if you want to, and a lot of you don't have video on, but is there anybody that feels strongly that this is a thumbs down? So we'll go with the fact that we're going to move forward on these unless I hear otherwise. Anybody a strong thumbs down? Come off mute and let me know.
Or if you want to put it in the chat, that works too.
Yeah, I don't think I can see the chat at the same time, but maybe I can. Oh, there it is. So yeah, I suspect this is going to be a question that we can all sort of fill out. I don't see any thumbs down, and I didn't hear anybody come off mute, so we're going to move on. How often? Oh wait, that was the other one. Um, yeah, Matt. This one is how often are the
Oh,
members
Maggie,
aware?
I
Yeah,
apologize. The first one there,
was already there.
well, they were suggesting putting the proposed question in place of the one that we just talked about.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
okay.
I meant to point that out. The other questions, I should have made it a little bit more clear, but the other questions are on their own as additions. This one would be, so the one that I'm highlighting would be in place of the one above it.
Okay. The okay. So the first question was how frequently does your credit card encounter disputes or fraud claims related to consumer authorized, so that the transaction was actually authorized, but then it's a fraudulent transaction, that it's a scam. And we were more in the daily, and then the proposition was instead, how often are the members aware that they're being deceived yet choose to continue contact with the scammer for various reasons, romance scams. So it's sort of just a reword. Anybody opposed on this or feel like we need the repetition? I think I didn't see anybody. I didn't hear anybody. I think
I
that's
have a
good.
question on
Oh,
that.
go ahead, Patricia.
So when we say the member is aware that they're being deceived, is that because the credit union has like informed them, or they know when they're contacted that it's a scammer?
Well, I know from our perspective, like I had a member contact me and say, I'm going to send $800 via Venmo. How much am I insured for at the credit union? And I went like, wait, what? Stop. Um, so I think that might be the scenario. Or we also had a scenario where a member was determined that she was dating Brad Pitt, and was sending money to Brad Pitt cash in overnight envelopes, and we would have a discuss. And at some point you can't. That's that member's money. So I think that's really what's being asked here: is how often is the member aware that they're being deceived, but they continue anyway.
Okay.
Whether obviously it's a lack of education and awareness, but it's how often are they willing to take the risk because they're not necessarily the ones that are footing the bill. And what I'm hearing from the chat is that the original, we like the original better.
I think so too. I think that kind of, because we don't have a lot of members who contact us before they're actually doing it. They've already sent their money before they're even aware that it is a scam.
Okay. So Matt, aware adds a strange element to agree. Keith, I like the original question better. Great. Matt, I think we have a consensus that we like the original one better. Okay.
I see the first one and the second one very as different questions. The first one is, as was just pointed out, is they were deceived, but they did not know. The second one is they did know. And as you know, we're dealing with negligence is not a negligence or complicity from the CFPB doesn't matter. It's still fraud, and we refund the money, from the dispute perspective. That's just my opinion. I
Yeah,
think the
because you
second
have
one would be a second question in addition to the first one.
the second one gets more into like fraudulent intent, I think.
Complicity.
Yeah. So Matt, let's look at that second one, maybe you and I, and see if there's a way that maybe we could, um because fraudulent intent is holding a lot of us up, because it's really, really difficult to prove. You and I talked about that, Matt, and I talked to legal counsel about that too. It's really, really difficult to prove legally, and I think that that's where this question is going. And so maybe we don't trash it, but we postpone it, once we maybe get some of the data. I just don't want to get too caught in the mud with the survey that we just never get it out. I think we're okay to consider the fact that this might not be the only survey. We might get back so much information that that's really useful that we have to do a kind of a sub one. Um, add a commentary at a later time to the original question.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
That works, Maggie. I just
Okay.
made a note that we can maybe use it later.
Yeah. Okay. So the jumping down to that third one, how often have you encountered situations each month where members withdrew or closed their accounts before you attempted to reverse the credit after the investigation concluded? So I think this one's talking about provisional credit maybe, and then they spend it and close the account. Probably it seems like a valid survey question. I'm not sure for those of us that are, well, I'm not sure for anybody that information, because then it goes to a share charge off, I would gather. But anyway, anybody a big thumbs down on that one? Valid question about the loss of provisional credit. Yep, agree. Okay, that one seems to be good to go. Next one is, would you be in favor of closing the member's account in such cases in order to avoid another gross negligence scenario? We actually had this scenario within our credit union, and we just removed, we limited services, And the member didn't like that, and we indicated that it was possible that it was temporary. But anyway, would you be? Yes, I would be in favor of that. That might get into the whole expulsion of members, but anybody not 100% thumbs down on this one? Okay. It's kind of one of those questions, Matt, though, that I wonder if it's like when I look at it, I go, well, of course I'd be in favor of that. Like, uh, gross negligence. Of course I would be in favor of closing it. But hey, we can have a gimme question too. How many cases of gross negligence do you encounter in a month? I feel like this is there. Could we list one of the responses as all? No. Sorry. Um, that was bitter Maggie coming out. Give a choice of limited services, close account, or leave the account open with, yeah. So on this, how many cases of gross negligence? I think it's a little subjective, but is anybody completely opposed? Oh, Matt, this is a good point Brandy made. It says maybe provide examples of gross negligence. Like maybe we could put in parentheses on that one above, like just a couple, like in the one above, we said romance scams or whatever, but maybe we can um, provide an example in parentheses. Good point, Brandy. Yeah, Brad Pitt. Uh-huh. She had to send him money so his wife wouldn't know. Um, so the how many cases? Oh, that also might go into the question above, Matt. See, we use gross negligence twice. So we might want to, yeah, there you go. So anybody on this, how many cases of gross negligence do you encounter in a month? Even though I say it's a little subjective, anybody big thumbs down on that? It seems fine. I don't see anybody. Nobody's coming off mute to yell at me. So
Maggie, this is
yeah.
Giovanni. I'm sorry, I'm not very used to Zoom. How do you do the thumbs up and thumbs down?
Oh, well, we're sort of using chat, but if you video yourself, you can just put your thumb down.
Oh,
Whatever works for you. You can come off mute too. I don't want to go too fast, but there's a lot of stuff we want to cover, so I want to make sure that we're getting consensus on this, but it looks like we're using the chat. Do you have the chat open?
I do, I do.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry about
That's okay. Okay, so no big thumbs down on that one either. The What do you consider for a new account? Is that saying, Matt, like what is your definition of a new account?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Maybe we need another word in there.
Yeah, what do you yeah, but I'm thinking that's so we can draw a correlation between new account and fraud on new accounts. Is that the
Yeah, I think that's where they were going with this.
okay? Group thoughts? I think it's probably good data to have, but I'm not sure without a follow-up to, well, how many, just not, I don't know.
Is the
Anybody?
sorry,
Go ahead.
Maggie, is the intent of asking this question to determine if we're seeing the timing that we're seeing these?
That's what I was wondering. Like, are we trying to draw a
That would help
correlation?
us frame the question if we knew the intent of the question.
Or if there was a follow-up question that
Right.
was, on new accounts, how often are you seeing fraud within
Right.
blah, blah, blah. Matt, was this, I can't recall in the survey, was this to be injected somewhere within the survey that was being asked so that we could, like I said, draw a correlation between
Yeah, I
new,
believe it would be part of like when they're talking about accounts and everything like that in the survey, this would be part of that section. So this would be kind of like as you're seeing of as you're opening accounts and things like that, which of the as we ask in the survey, which ones are those new fraud? And then this one is like, what do you consider a new account? So
Okay, so it is in relation to another
yes,
question. Okay, then
yeah,
I think that's that's worthwhile. So some other questions that are surrounding this. So yeah, Kayla, Kayla, did I pronounce that right?
Gila.
It said how much fraud is tied to new accounts. Yeah. Terry said tied to probationary period before offering expanded services. Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're okay with that one. The next, at least one or two, I think, get into remote deposit capture. And I think we want to be clear on this, Matt, that we're talking about mobile deposit. So there's remote deposit capture for commercial accounts that allows them to scan checks at their. So I think we want to be clear on what we're all calling remote deposit capture, um, which I believe in this scenario is mobile deposits. Is that correct?
Yeah, as I understand it, this was meant to be mobile deposits.
Okay.
Do you want us to change it to that instead of
Well, it might just be the vocabulary that we use, but I have a banking background, and we used to call remote deposit capture what happened at a business accounts where they were able to scan check 21 checks on their on site. So I just think it's I don't know. I'm asking the group, is it clear enough when we say how do you treat remote deposit capture when a member deposits a check? Do you offer member do you offer immediate, full, or partial credit on the check? Are we okay with the wording of that? Are we okay with all of that? Mobile deposit is more clear. Say mobile deposit, RDC. Okay. So we want to make that clear. So we can say, how do you treat mobile deposit and then it further defines it when a member deposits a check. I think this one will be interesting. The answers to this one will be interesting. Mobile check deposit, Ashley said that mobile check deposit, that would work also. Um, Anybody maybe clarify with consumer mobile check deposit? That's more clear. Perfect. Anybody not approving of this message at all?
and I'm assuming I should just change it for the rest of them too then.
As long as they are the same question, because I think RDC on the commercial side has its own. That's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, it
Okay.
is because they talk about Reg CC in the next one. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I didn't hear that we're vetoing that. Would you like consumer mobile check deposit to follow the same schedule availability as regulation CC? Um, hmm. I think that's probably good intel as we try to propose modernization of Reg E. So I can see where that information would be relevant. Anybody? Ashley said no. No to the question, or no, no, you don't want it to follow Reg CC. Do not want Reg CC for mobile deposit. Yeah, I just think that it's if we have this information, it's where we can say, hey, we already asked and we don't want to go with Reg CC. We don't, we don't want that. We can draw back on the answers to this. So I think the question is okay to include, and I think the answer is no, but we'll see. Um, okay, and what type of fraud do you see the most with consumer mobile check deposit? Um, the most.
Yeah, this one, Maggie, was the one I was not, I would need y'all's help on because some of these terms I was not familiar with just in my background. So if we want to change things up, we can.
I just don't want to get too far down a rabbit hole about one particular aspect of Reg E is from my perspective. That's all. It's very selfishly, I want to get to the point where we have proven that Reg E needs to change. And oh, by the way, this is where it needs to change. And I'm not sure that I think this is something we can discuss on these calls. Like, where are you seeing it, and what are you seeing the most with? Um, I'm just not sure the value of this information. And Matt, you have to speak up because you guys are going to be gathering the data. um, is the answer to this helpful? Um, I mean, it is.
I
I don't
think
know.
I was gonna say, and
Oh,
talking to legislators and regulators and things, they're not, I don't say they're not interested in the fraud. They're just interested that there is fraud. They're not entirely, they don't really get into the weeds of like which kind of fraud are you seeing the most of. They just don't like the idea that y'all are suffering so much loss from fraud. So maybe hashing it out for us internally is good, but I don't see this being something that we would use publicly unless there was like a huge, like 90% of you say one thing, because I imagine it's pretty spread out.
Yeah, I'm okay with vetoing this one actually. I could be talked into it, but if I'm the one doing the survey and it starts getting long, the whole TLDR, like I definitely don't want that to happen. That we say it was too long, I didn't do it, too many, and I think by putting things like, synthetic identity fraud, somebody might say, well, what does that even mean? Or what is that? All right, we got one vote for don't include, my vote for don't include.
Maggie, I think
Yes,
leaving it out would be best, but you can still capture that first option in there of new legit member when you ask how, and I forgot how it was worded, but basically how much fraud is related to a new
new
account and
account.
then
Yeah.
what's your definition of a new account. You won't go down the path of mobile deposit or something else. But as far as trying to get modernization for Reg E, capturing is it the risk of a new account is most important. And then this group can discuss in what products does that hit.
I think that's probably a good option, Terry. And I think we can, like you said in the group, we can hopefully we get to the point at the end of this call where we start having discussions about actual scenarios so that we can banter between the group about how we're handling specific things. So, Matt, I think we're gonna not include that one. Um, Deborah, I'm going to keep your question and because the answer is yes, but I'm going to keep your question and I want to hold off until the end on it if that's okay. All right, I
So
think oop, okay. I think that was how many questions does that make in total, Matt?
So if we added the questions that we just approved, it's about 25. Might be
Okay.
24 now. We took away two, so it's between 20 and 25. I can
Okay.
confidently say that. So
Okay. All right, good. I think that's good. So I think what we're looking for is a speak now or hold your peace until after the survey goes out. Are we all okay with it going as soon as Matt can get it to go? I say yes. I want to gain some traction on this. All right, we got a bunch of yeses, Matt. So giddy up. You're ready to go. Look at all those.
All right. And I just looked at and ran through it real quick. So even with all the questions, like when I put them all into the survey to add them, saying you guys approved all of them, it only put us at 24 questions.
Good.
So that'll put us 22 plus demographics. So I don't know if we count demographics, but if you count the demographics, it's less than 30. So
Perfect. Great. Great. Thanks to the group, and you'll let us know when that goes out.
yes, yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna work on talking to the communications folks today, see what's going out next week, and then see if we can get it going as soon as possible. So
Perfect. All right. Well, hit the next slide, and let's keep moving.
and then let me get this. All right. There we go.
Yeah. So a few of you reached out, or maybe not even you, maybe not even the group, but outside the group, reached out to Matt about the card companies having their own set of rules that we obviously have to navigate. So it's been asked whether we could chat about what we could do to work with those companies or work with the associations that work on behalf of those cards. Um, and so I think this is a time to actually come off mute and have conversations about I'm sure we're all frustrated by the differing rules of Visa and differing rules with MasterCard. I know in our shop we have the two, one on debit and one on credit, so we're constantly, messing with both. Um, but strategically, what can we do? What can we try to do with bringing partners in to this discussion or to this task force trying to get this edited or this modernized? Anybody have any thoughts? I didn't bring this up to Matt. I needed some clarification actually before I could even figure out what I was supposed to be asking.
I think one of the things that we'd have to do first is if we want to bring in these individuals and start having conversations with them, we need to be able to have something like some sort of presentation in our document that explicitly lists out those gaps and differences, if that makes sense. Because if we just say it and we're not giving them like maybe this group wants to say, okay, these are the areas that cause us the most contention, right? And so these are like, and you want to pick the top 5, or you want to pick whatever that looks like, and not go down, like you said, a rabbit hole of a whole bunch of different things within the reg, but we want to pick those that maybe the group says are their top contentions in relation to interpretation.
And I think our survey results I think we're on the right path, because I think those are going to be really helpful. This is actual data. This is what we're experiencing. This is what we're having a problem with. This is where we need help. But I'm not even sure. Matt, do you know who the associations are outside of, the main big ones, the Visa and MasterCard? Do you know what associations we would be trying to pull in outside of us pulling in the two main card?
Yeah, there would be some, and we could also talk to Samantha and Sydney about this a little bit, but like EPC, who does like Electronic Payments Coalition, they would have good contacts there. Our friends at Nacha have a lot of good contacts in the payments space. Terry just put,
Yeah.
yeah, Nacha was the suggestion. We've got really good contacts at Nacha. EPC is the other one that immediately comes to mind. And then with the work that Sydney and the team has done on Interchange, we have some contacts with the different companies who might be able to put us in front of, or get the right people in front of us. So I think it's just a matter of figuring out who all we want to talk to. And if it's just the big ones, that's fine too. But
Go for
yeah,
broke, Matt.
yeah. So I think that yeah, there is a pathway for us to find those folks. And then Jeff put in there the Payments Association. That's another good one. So there are different folks out there. I don't know how much they've been approached about this particular issue with Reg E, but it's worth at least trying again.
I think Terry put a comment in there that's really a good ask to start with a compare and contrast between the systems. And I do think if we could get some sort of collateral prepared from the answers to the survey questions, sort of like the one pager that we take to hike the hill. But these are the impacts. And by the way, these are the differing requirements, and then maybe list. I'm sort of envisioning like of course, an Excel spreadsheet of some sort, but I think that's probably a good place to start, Terry. Matt, is that something that the league could help with? Because that's all just research and
Yeah, and it sounds like Terry volunteered. So
I heard that too. I heard that too.
yeah, I think
Good
it's
help. Yeah.
it's a very useful tool. So I was just jotting a note to myself that yeah, I think we can do that on our side.
Terry, I bet AI would help.
You just read my mind. Just put your
Um,
different systems, not your different regulations. Give me a comparison. Yes, that is, I'll fully disclose. That's going to be my starting point. Why
Good.
work harder when you can work smarter?
Just make sure you double check that data
Yes.
because
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
it's still learning, I'm told. Um, the Jeff said the Payments Association. Anybody else have any kind of comments on this? I think it's obvious slash evident that this is a frustration because it does. I know for us, we sit back and say, okay, well, wait, which timeline are we talking about on this? And I think if we could at least get some of the timelines the same, that would be an easy ask. Also, Matt, I had a question since we're talking about bringing in other associations. Has there been any consideration to um, maybe partnering with ABA? On this isn't just impacting credit unions. This is impacting banks, and I'm certain they're doing some of their own stuff. Um, I don't know. I don't know if we want to go that route, and we definitely don't need to go that route right now. But this would be, one of those times where both sides of the coin are in agreement with that things need to change.
Yeah,
Um,
I haven't engaged that route yet. It did cross my mind. So I think that's something that the task force wants to do. We can make that happen. We do have
maybe down
friends
the road.
there in the various states. We work with the banking folks all the time on stuff like this and to kill things that they don't like and that we don't like.
Yeah.
So th we do have a pathway there.
Okay. Um, Matt, you knew more about why this was coming up. Do you feel like we have some of the information, or have we covered it? I haven't heard. I've only heard from two people in the chat.
Yeah, if anybody else wants to bring it up, feel free. I think what I've heard in talking to folks and then being out there in credit unions is just we are defaulting to the credit card timelines because they're even quicker than the other timelines. And then we need to have a discussion about like, how do we get those folks to be on board with this? Because it doesn't matter. And whoever, if you all want to correct me if I'm wrong, what I've heard is it doesn't matter if we change Reg E, if we still have to follow MasterCard's guidelines, we're going to follow those because we don't want to be essentially like not able to use their rails in the system type of thing. So that's where this conversation came from. And if I'm misrepresenting anything, please speak up. But that's what I've heard out there just talking to folks.
I think that's definitely valid, but I think for me, and I'm just speaking. I'm not speaking for the group. it feels like something that's above my pay grade as far as like having those conversations. That seems like more like a Samantha thing, or I don't know. But it wouldn't be like I don't picture myself engaging with MasterCard or Visa. um, yeah, like Deborah said, we use the most restrictive timeline as it allows us to meet both. Yeah, of course. Um, so I think it's a valid question, a valid argument. Like, you know, of course, if we make these changes, then and MasterCard isn't in on it or isn't in agreement, I cannot imagine why they would not be in agreement for modernizing this. But I do think that we probably need their buy-in, at least. Really, I'm wondering why they haven't pushed any of this. But
Yeah, I totally agree, Maggie. And we'll, as soon as, once I see Samantha, we usually, chat once a week or so. I will mention this to her and just get her thoughts on what we need to do to maybe engage those folks. Because this may be, and just for the group too, this may be like a down the road conversation we
yeah.
have. So just introducing this because I kept hearing it out there. So
Well,
Yeah.
and I think it's somebody was going to go. Who was going to talk? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think that it doesn't have to be a formalized thing at this point, Matt, but I do think we need to um, start to make it known that this is something, we're attempting to identify and attempting to get modernized, and that we will be looking for their buy-in, or we will be, I don't know. And so it might just be something that she starts to broach. Deborah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that because in reality, if you can get their buy-in with the big pockets that they have, they may be able to help us push it.
Right, right. And so definitely, I definitely see the point. And I mean, we don't want to be spinning our wheels for nothing, because we're going to waste time. But um, it just feels like something to me that has to happen higher up. Honestly, it needs to happen at America's credit unions, to be honest with you, at that level. But like I said to Samantha before, if somebody there isn't going to do it, then we'll certainly give it a try. I think this task force should have been done at the America's credit unions level, but I'm not going to get onto that right now. We will we will pull up our boots and we will get started. Matt, do you have anything else on this?
no, I think you guys have covered everything. I've got my marching orders, and like like you said, the last 20 minutes or so, if you all want to talk, well, 15, if you all want to chat about scenarios and things like that, that's totally fine. So I can pull down and just let y'all see each other, so that way you don't have to stare at the slideshow the whole time.
Listing
Um,
final thoughts.
yeah.
So this part of the call actually came from a conversation we had internally. I have a few people from my organization on the call, and where they would see value, and this is just selfishly, if we don't want to do it, we don't have to, but I'm going to throw it out there, where they would see value in this task force is in having conversations about what others are seeing and how things are being handled under the Reg E requirement. Because I do think one of the biggest challenges of Reg E is the interpretation of it. I think we're all interpreting it a little bit differently, and how your credit union is approaching it is fine. But I think sometimes when we look at it, we go, okay, well, in this particular scenario, I'm not sure. And then it always kind of falls back on that really gray area of fraudulent intent, and then the ability or inability to prove that. So are we okay with, I have at least one scenario, and I'm going to ask first, though, if anybody else has a scenario that you'd like to share and find out from the group how they deal with it. If you don't want to be on the call and you want to drop off, that's fine. If you want to send me a message and say, please don't ever do that again, that's fine too. But we're just trying to find a way to really kind of add value to the group. So, thoughts?
Yeah, and just one thing, we are recording, so just try to talk in
Yeah,
generalities,
for
everybody.
sure.
So just to give you a heads up, we are recording.
Yeah. And maybe don't use any names or anything, but Bob the Builder is my favorite one.
Right, John Smith.
Right. Bob the Builder's the one I use the most. Anybody have a scenario? Because if hypotheticals, yep, they're all hypotheticals, Jeff. We don't have nobody's Brad Pitt's girlfriend. Okay, well, we had one, hypothetically speaking, that the member called in and indicated that the card was, I think it was initially that the card was lost. Somebody can clarify from my team. But when asked, nobody had their PIN and nobody had their card. So then a few days later, the call comes in and the card had been used at an ATM. Card was present, PIN was used. Wanted to indicate that those were fraudulent transactions. Got a police report, though not required. Police detective was on the phone. Police detective was on the phone with us after the fact without the member and indicated to us that they thought that this was something that was a pattern, and fell, without getting into too much details, fell into a little bit of the lines of friendly fraud. But ultimately, we felt like we didn't have the ability to prove fraudulent intent. But it was really frustrating because in my opinion, and I think it was maybe Ashley in the last call said, we put these controls in place as an institution, and one of the controls in place is the PIN, and the other is the plastic card. And the card ended up back with the member. So it's uh, we ended up covering it because we felt like when we asked legal counsel, we asked a couple other credit unions. It felt like in this instance it fell under Reg E. We did ask a couple institutions and they said no, because if the card is used and the PIN is used, we're not covering that under Reg E. Those are the controls that were used. There's your controls. Because then anybody could say, oh, well, I didn't give my card to my son, and whatever. So that's a scenario, and I'm sort of just wondering, of course, hypothetically, how you guys handle that. Terry, that's interesting. That is sort of how we felt. So Terry said, I say the card is the key to the house and the PIN is the alarm code. If they share those, they're implying permission. Yeah, because yes, the PIN is supposed to be the control. The PIN is the mitigating control to the risk of the card. Okay. Not too many comments on that one. Got it. Or if they don't secure the PIN. Right, that's negligence. Like writing it on the back of the card, correct.
I will
And
say that we
Go
have
ahead.
this a good bit. I feel like we have those that lose their card, and then they have transactions at the ATM, and unfortunately, we do cover those. Even though I hate that,
Mhm.
because if they have your card, how did they magically get your PIN? But we do have a lot of them that, like Brandy said, they wrote their PIN on the back of the card so they could remember it.
And so in this particular instance, we did limit the services of the member. We gave the money back, limited the services of the member, and meaning no debit card and no online, at least for the time being. And so we've sort of let it hang out there, because it just feels like, okay, well, we're going to give this provisional credit and we're going to give this credit back, provisional first and then credit. Would you reject the dispute if they didn't provide the police report? No, No, the police report isn't required. So no, Timothy, we wouldn't. That was just uh, the member provided the police input. The Like I said, we did reduce services, but it felt like, okay, well, we're gonna give this money back, and in what instance are we protected if the hypothetical member decides to put the same pin or whatever? And I think I'm sort of preaching to the choir, I'm sure, but I think what this is highlighting is the fact that the interpretation of Reg E is really difficult. Jeff, you had yeah, we aren't protected. Jeff, that the surveillance footage is interesting because when the detective spoke to us, and this is actually kind of a good spin-off question. When the detective spoke to us, he was going on vacation and he was going to come back, and he said, if I get footage, I think it's possible that there's a family member. Okay. So then, is it that we press charges as the credit union on the family member because now we are the victim? Isn't that how you would have that go?
That's what we
Absolutely.
do.
If we find out who, yeah, we reserve the right to go after anyone if
Yeah.
they're liable, especially the member too. It's an uncomfortable situation, but you know, we're not a charity. And that's what I
Feels
think, credit unions historically have been. But, I use Walmart as an example. No matter the level of crime, whether it's petty, whether it's $25 or $1,000, they're always going to file charges because that's their deterrent.
Yeah, and I think that's yeah, regulation E versus limitation of services. The member continues to make behavior after your
That's
education.
what I was saying. Regulation E, despite interpretation, there are those guidelines of what you have to do. But then you as a credit union can determine, okay, how many times are we going to refund? How many times are we going to educate? At what point do we limit services? Regulation E doesn't address those things. So that's
Correct.
more of risk mitigation. Here's Regulation E, but to reduce the risk of so much loss, what are we going to do to protect ourselves?
And I just
Regulation E
think
can't stop all that.
I think some of the controls we have in place, we went back and looked, and this will be interesting for a lot of you. The employee of ours that's in charge of our fraud area, we were looking at on within Star. We use Star, whatever, hypothetically, I guess, and we noticed that a great number of our fraud debit transactions fall under the merchant, not a CVC2 participant. Okay, well, this is a problem in my mind because we went from magnetic stripes to EMV. We went from EMV and with the expiration and the CVV code on the back. If you're telling me that a merchant can bypass that, then the merchant is bypassing the mitigating control. Why do we even have it in the first place? So I asked recently, or maybe not yet, can we restrict those transactions on the way in the way you would restrict and say, I don't want the magnetic stripe fallback. And so we're waiting to hear from that because when you look at a lot of our fraud, it's that takes out, okay, if the card's not present and the card number and expiration are used, then you should be comfortable putting in the CVV. We all have to do it online for valid transactions. Why is the merchant able to bypass that? Well, that's where the fraud. That's where it's occurring. So I do have one other scenario that I wanted to ask about, and it sort of involves. It's not really interpretation, but it might be. And that in my previous experience, we would credit the member if they decided to press charges against the family member. Oh, that's interesting. I don't think you can do that. Or the back when you were in the banking industry, maybe they could. But I know for us, we're not allowed to require the police report or require pressing charges, which is, you know, another whole thing in and of itself. So some of the hypothetical fraud that we may or may not be experiencing recently involves targeted calls to members where they're being told that they're setting up some sort of additional secure alerting and to please reply yes to this transaction alert that comes through. So an alert comes through for a transaction that is being done by a fraudster. The member is actually saying yes to the fraud alert. Okay, so, oh, sorry, Deborah. I wanted your opinion too. After that initial fraud alert comes through that they reply yes to, there's additional fraud, but they've now been removed from the fraud strategy. But technically speaking, didn't the member only reply yes to that transaction with that merchant? So then you'd cover everything but the one they replied yes to because they confirmed that transaction. So we're thinking that yes, you cover that one, but what happens when there's three for the same merchant for the same dollar amount? So let's say it's Walmart.com. It wasn't it
Like a
it's
recurring?
no,
No.
not recurring.
Okay.
It was Walmart.com, $200 transaction. You say yes, removes you out of the fraud strategy. Two more Walmart.com, one for $200, one for $100. By saying yes to that initial transaction, are you on the member side saying yes to the 200 and the 100?
We would.
So you'd cover the two, just not the one they said yes to.
Correct.
Or wait, maybe I
Depending on
missed.
the timeline, depending on the timeline. So for instance, if they were charged within, you know, we look at the timing too. So for instance, if they did the charge and then within an hour they did the other two charges, we take the position that it was most likely them. If it's the next day or if it's then it depends on the time span, if that makes sense too. You know what I mean?
But these were fraudulent. These were fraudulent, but they indicated yes on the first fraudulent transaction. So are you saying that they said yes to the other two as well?
If they're within an hour or two, usually we would consider them all as one.
And that they said yes. Okay. It's interesting because on the flip side of that, if you were making a legitimate transaction, we were using Delta or airline tickets, and you had to do three individual transactions for three airline. If I said yes to Delta or American, I don't want to then, as a member, have to say yes to the second one and yes to the third one. So I can understand them. I can understand the analytics being removed on those two other transactions. But technically speaking, by saying yes, was the member only saying yes to that transaction at that time frame with that merchant, or was it within the hour, like you said?
Yeah, we take the position based on the timing that they're giving permission, authorization for that. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's how we handle it today. Not saying we
Yeah.
won't change it.
Yeah.
Right now, we're seeing so much fraud, and you know, some of them. I mean, we've even proven where they've like the video surveillance. I don't know who brought that up because I
Yeah.
don't have that up again because I was getting off. But we've had people swear up and down it wasn't them, and then it's them at the ATM. Like it's literally them doing the transaction at the ATM, because they don't know we will also reach out and do 314B request and ask for other information or their surveillance video if it wasn't our ATM. So, you know, we've caught our own members in those lies. So we just have so much fraud that we can't we try to look at, I mean, I hate to say this,
I
but
know.
we're not a charity. So we look for every way that we don't have to give them provisional credit. But sometimes we do, but we try to look at a time frame, right? That window, that sweet spot of a window. And I think it also depends. We look at the tenure of the employee. How much fraud have they caused us? And, how much have they claimed in the past? Meaning, have they never lost their card and they've been a member with us for 25 years?
Right.
Well, the likelihood that they're involved or, that they're trying to, it is a little bit different. So we kind of look at it based on a number of things and we have some parameters.
Yeah, this happened, it's to the tune of about 5,000 per member. And it's one of them, it hit differently. And what it is that it was an international transaction that came through first. The member said yes. Two more international transactions came through, and then a multitude of other ones. And so we've said, okay, well, we have to cover the ones that were international but didn't have the same merchant number as the one you said yes to. Because that's you didn't authorize those. But these ones that you said yes to, that was the same merchant for the same dollar amount, you said yes. Like, that's the control. And yeah, you feel badly, and we're you're in a position, Deborah, specifically where you're not running into these people at the grocery store. um, we are, and they're crying on the phone, and you're trying to figure out a way to be like, okay, well, we can cover this one, but we absolutely cannot cover these. These are not, these have nothing. You responded yes. That's the control.
I'm laughing because literally when I went to church, like probably about 6 months ago, somebody came up to me, I need to tell you about this situation that I had at your branch. And I'm like, oh, hold up. But yeah, it's funny but yeah, not usually.
It's a great discussion. I'm sorry to cut y'all. We are a little bit over. I know,
Yeah,
folks, if you want to
that's good.
stay, you can. I just didn't want anybody to feel like they had to stay. But if you want to, I don't have anything going on, so if you all want to keep talking for a few more minutes, that's totally fine.
Yeah,
Maggie,
I am interested in some of your scenarios. I have some that I'd like to run by
yeah,
people. So if there's like if we want to run through hypotheticals in an email, or if we want to have a separate call, I would love that. I do have to drop.
yeah, go for it. I'll reach out to you, but
topics, because we have so many different scenarios.
yeah, maybe Matt, maybe we could send out before the next one and ask for some scenarios, and we can cover one per meeting or something. Thanks,
Yeah.
Deborah. I know you got to go, and thanks, Brandy. It
Could we
was just
stop
I
recording and
love
still
Jeff's
continue?
comment. What'd you say, Jeff?
I was just saying, could we stop recording at this point and then we could have more free form?
Yeah, I think the next meeting or two we can go through scenarios and just cut the meeting off and then just do scenario talk and make it a little bit more intimate is what I'll say. So yeah, no, this has been great. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording now. And like I say, if y'all need to drop off, that's fine. I don't have
Yeah.
anything for a little while, so if y'all want to stick for a little while and you can, feel free to. But
Thanks,
I'm gonna
Angela.
stop the recording and then let y'all continue talking.